Dear younger me, I'm writing to you at a time you had a paradigm that didn't belong. You thought we needed to move on without acknowledging our history. So let me briefly explain why you were wrong.
Hi there, I'm Jim Thunder, and I'm just continuing on with our series of just going through each stanza of the spoken word poem, breaking them into sections, and explaining them a little bit better. So this section, it's talking about the one idea to leave behind in order to decolonize our mind. Quit living in the past and cut it out with the guilt trip broadcasts. So I'll start by talking about this incredible statement from Murray Sinclair, the former chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So somebody asked him, why can't you just move on? Why can't we just forget what happened and move forward together? And his response was, why can't you remember? And he talked about how, 9/11, we don't just move on, we remember, because that's part of our healing, and that's how we move forward together. He talked about Remembrance Day, and how, as a nation, we remember the pain, and we remember the loss, the trauma of losing people. We commemorate them, we remember them, and we honor them. Why can't we do the same thing for those who have been through residential schools? Those who were taken away, and the many of them who died? Why can't we do the same thing? And it's just a phenomenal thing, because it turns it around. Because the first question is a bit egocentric. Why do I have to continue to feel inconvenience and uncomfortable talking about our uncomfortable past and our uncomfortable history? Why do I still have to do that? But it turns it around and says, no, this is an incredible opportunity now for us to move forward together and to show that we care about each other, that we're healing together, that we're commemorating together. See, residential schools, for those who haven't heard or who don't know, this was a period of time in our history, a long period of time in our history, where children were taken from their homes, out of their communities. They were taken thousands of miles away in many cases, and they were told that their culture, their life, their way of being is less than, and it's evil, and the only way for them to move forward in a dignified way was to move forward as Canadians. And there was all kinds of trauma and abuses that they've experienced. Most importantly, many of them died. Many of them lost their lives, whether through starvation, through sickness, through trying to make their way home. This was a traumatic event. And in order for us to move forward together, we have to recognize that this happened. And we have to mourn it together as a nation. And we have to commit to making sure that this never happens again. A similar type of traumatic event happened in the 60s, called the 60s Scoop. And this is when people were taken out of their homes once again, and they were put in other places where they were raised by non-Indigenous families. They lost their culture, they lost their language, they lost their connections to their biological families. Even today, babies are born, placed in the arms of their mother, and immediately the same day, taken away. How do we stop that? How do we move forward? Well, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they gave us 94 calls to action, and some of these talk about the fact that we just need to commemorate, we just need to remember, we need to build these monuments. If we just begin by acknowledging that pain, acknowledging that hurt, and letting us grieve together, that love, that mutual love and respect will convey the truth of what happened, and that love paves the way to discuss what's next to do. See, in 2008, we had an apology from the Prime Minister. From then, that led to the formation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They did an exhaustive study throughout this nation, looking for solutions on how we can move forward together. So they gave us their final report, and they gave us an executive summary to make it a little bit more readable for the average Canadian. And even then, they broke it down even further to give us 94 calls to action. These 94 calls to action can be actioned by any member of society. So wherever you find yourself, if you read through these 94 calls to action, if you at the very least know what they are, first of all, that's great. But each and every one of us could find at least one that we can act on to make sure that we move forward together in a spirit of reconciliation. So my challenge to those watching this video is to read through these calls to action, to know what they are, and to find at least one that you can act on to move us forward together. As I mentioned in the poem, that love will pave the way to discuss what's next to do. Thanks for watching.